With the announcement of Monster Hunter Wilds, a lot of players have been hopping onto Monster Hunter World and Iceborne, so I decided to join the party. However, I wanted to make a challenge, thus leading to the question, can I beat Monster Hunter World Iceborne as a hardcore Nuzlocke with only the Charge Blade? The rules will be in the description, so let's see how I did. I start off by investigating Legiana tracks in the ancient forest that leads us to the Hoarfrost area. The handler and I arrive, she slips. Bruh, why am I not surprised at this point? We start exploring the area and run into a Beotodas, which I know a lot of people don't like the Piscine Wyverns, but let's be fair and state that Beotodas is at least the best one in Iceborne, so there's that. During the fight, I realized that my Palicos was with me, so I had to put him on hold because of the rules, and then I continued the fight. The fight with Beotodas is pretty straightforward. He likes to dig around the snow. He's honestly really easy to hit and mount as well, as there was like a little stump thingy. I don't know what it was, but it was a spot for me to jump off and mount him. And he had a lot of openings and was really easy to just use my charge attack so I can charge up the files and just unleash them all on him. So yeah, eventually I defeat him. I go to investigate the Hoarfrost Reach once more and run into a Bambaro. Bambaro honestly fits the characteristics of a moose, and oh my gosh, this thing is crazy. The fight starts off pretty standard, clutch claw to its face and launch it into a wall and then attack it. Well, little did I know, but I ended up activating an avalanche. I mean, I'll take the free damage, but it's kind of annoying of not being aware of it. I then resumed beating it up. The fight started to pick up more once he started to throw giant boulders at me and then roll them around, trying to flatten me. Sheesh. Beotodas shows up and they have a turf war, so more free damage. The fight continues for a bit until eventually it dies. I then head out and continue investigating. We find the Tundra Wyverian while looking for the Legiana, and he tells us to check below. So we check below and run into a Viper Tobi-Kadachi. Now, I didn't realize how unprepared I was for this fight, and oh my gosh, Viper Tobi-Kadachi is more frustrating than a lot of the previous monsters that I've fought. What makes it really annoying is that it has poison, it can paralyze you, and then it also has its own special poison that takes your health down faster than the regular poison. And this thing is just basically a regular Tobi-Kadachi, but with those moves in mind. During the fight, Vulgar and Janath comes out of nowhere and just bodies Viper, and then runs away. So I continue to beat Viper up. I try to use the environment surroundings as much as possible to try and beat this thing. The other thing that was annoying was all of the annoying small monsters that were attacking me during the fight, especially the wolves. I didn't expect them to be so annoying until one of them thought it was going to be a good idea to wrap around me, which causes me to not be able to attack Viper, but allows Viper to get a free hit on me. And keep in mind, I was poisoned at this time, and so I dodge its next attack and then I faint to the poison. Ugh, stupid freaking wolves. So I go back with the Rathalos Charge Blade and faint to the gosh dang poison again. Yay. Now some of you are probably wondering why I don't restock on antidotes and stuff. Well, let me tell you, one of the rules I forgot to mention about this challenge is that I'm not allowed to restock. So I return with my Tobi-Kadachi Charge Blade and I get him to start limping, just in time for him to cause me to faint. And with it being my last Charge Blade, I have failed the challenge. So round 2, here we come. After grinding like crazy in Master Rank 1, I make some Master Rank armor with skills that helps my Charge Blade. I also re-hunt Beotodas and Bambaro. Luckily I did not faint against them. Before hunting Viper again, I hunted a regular Tobi-Kadachi so that I can upgrade its charge blade into master rank and have an easier time with Viper, since Viper is weak to thunder. With that out of the way, it was time to hunt Viper Tobikadachi. This time the fight was a bit more smooth thanks to me bringing more items to heal and recover from poison along with the master rank armor. And this thing was still annoying to fight, with it constantly jumping around, poisoning me, but thanks to hunting regular Tobikadachi a lot, I was adjusted to Viper's movement. Fulgur and Janath shows up again and gets some damage in. Using a thunder weapon against Viper once again makes the fight easier. Eventually I am able to finish off Viper Tobikadachi. We then discover an old ship. The handler gets emotional about her grandpa and joins the older lady to find the truth. Good riddance. And then the serious handler becomes our handler for the time being. After some grinding, I upgraded the Gigafrost charge blade to master rank and make it my 4th charge blade. I then hunt Coral Puki Puki. Unlike Viper Tobikadachi, Coral Puki Puki wasn't too bad of a fight. Coral would be annoying with the range of the water stream attacks and one of the attacks where it splits into 2 different beams, but aside from that, it wasn't that tough of a hunt. The Gigafrost charge blade also helped since Coral Puki Puki is weak to ice. With Coral Puki Puki done, I then hunted Nightshade Palumu, and I hate this thing. Yeah. I even came prepared with energy drinks. Now, you got to remember that I'm completely alone in these hunts, so either I'd recover with energy drinks when I start falling asleep, or I get hit by it. It was rarely a win condition. The other thing that was frustrating was how much it would stay in the air. Now, I know flash bombs would have helped, but in master rank, you can only knock out of the sky once per area zone, so it really wouldn't been that useful. It would have been about the same duration of either knocking into the wall with a clutch claw or mounting it. During the fight, I got surrounded by the sleep clouds and start falling asleep, and Nightshade does a spin dash attack, causing me to faint and lose the defender's charge blade. So I switched to Tobikadachi's charge blade and get it close to death to then faint with being stunned and then the sleep clouds, and so there's just no getting out of that. I also forgot, and that was one of the things that made the fight annoying, was that he actually can stun you and then surround you with the sleep clouds, which you're basically screwed over at that point. But after blasting Nightshade into a wall, it finally dies. I then upgrade my Tobikadachi charge blade into the Viper version, since the Viper one is a separate tree. I also make the Diablo's charge blade tree. Next I hunt Barioth, who I wasn't expecting to be such a wall. Yeah, Iceborne Barioth is definitely harder than Sunbrick's Barioth, but yet again, this is also a hardcore challenge, so there's a lot of variables. And I guess he didn't like the fact that he didn't have much screen time in my Sunbreak video and decided to seek revenge on me, because oh boy, he definitely got his screen time this time, y'all. So I start off with my Rathalos charge blade, since Barioth is weak to fire, but it's a high rank weapon, so it's not going to do much. The other thing too is that Barioth moves a lot. He's a very jumpy boy, and he also likes to get up in the air and shoot ice tornadoes and then fly towards you at a different angle to either shoulder dash you, or, well, not shoulder dash, but shoulder bash, or tail whip, or something stupid. He always ends up doing some annoying move after firing the tornado, which was pretty annoying, but not as annoying as my user error of mistiming the charge blade's guard points, because if you time it correctly, you can guard it and attack and also cause potential stun damage. And anytime he would try to do the pounce, I would attempt to do a guard point and often miss the timing on it, causing him to beat me. And so here's a quick montage of all of my failed attempts of trying to beat this wall of a monster. So after all those failed attempts, I decided to do some research so I can figure out how to beat this thing once and for all, and came to the conclusion that I needed to utilize my traps more and break its parts, which honestly, knowing the upcoming monsters, Barioth is a great monster to teach that for players. So after trapping it many times, slamming into the wall, mounting it, breaking its parts, dropping icicles on it, he eventually dies. Next I hunt Nargacuga. Luckily Nargacuga isn't as annoying as Barioth. This caused me to faint and lose the Viper Kodachi Charge Blade, but is then killed. I then make Gyarados' Charge Blade to counter Glavenus. I also make Great Gyro's Charge Blade and get it to Master Rank. I then take on Glavenus and oh my gosh, I did not expect this to be a stressful fight. Like, I know it's been 5 years since I last fought this thing for the first time in Iceborne, but during that time I don't remember it being such a difficult fight like it was this time. Wow, this is a hardcore Nuzlocke after all. I'm actually kind of glad this thing was not a pushover. It actually was very nice to have a monster push me to the limits. And Diablos was also extremely annoying during this hunt, constantly getting in the way. Although, seeing Diablos lift up Glavenus and throwing it is pretty funny and entertaining. But that doesn't excuse it for setting me up to get tail slapped by Glavenus and faint. Thanks, Diablos. So I bring out my Giga Frost Charge Blade, since ice is one of the next best elements for Glavenus. And this fight also made me realize why having white sharpness is really nice, because oh my gosh, my weapon would bounce like crazy. Luckily tenderizing certain parts would help, but white sharpness would just be nice overall. Also, Glavenus is very bulky, and so I eventually run out of potions and time gets closer to expiring. So yeah, there was a lot of pressure. Luckily I've been collecting herbs to restock my potions, and luckily I had evade window and extender. Those helped a lot with dodging some of his attacks, and luckily some of his attacks were pretty predictable. And with less than 10 minutes left of the hunt, Glavenus eventually falls. I then upgrade my Giga Frost Charge Blade into Barioth's. I then upgrade my Gyarados Charge Blade into Nargacuga's. After some grinding, I make Glavenus armor and armor from Nightshade. I then take on Brachydios, and this fight was scary. Brachydios is very much a in-your-face monster, and it's been a while since I fought it. He's also a bit harder to clutch claw since he's essentially a boxer and is always moving and swinging his fists or headbutting it. Yeah, it's not easy to clutch claw him. I managed to get him in some traps and mount him. I even dropped some crystal pillars on him that dealt a lot of damage. Rathalos comes in and has a turf war with Bracky and does a decent amount of damage. Rathalos then knocks Bracky down, allowing me to get some free hits. Thanks, Azur. I then break one of his fists. I then break his horn and continue to unleash damage. I then break his other fist. I then misclick and get comboed till I fainted.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed
up. So I come back with my Gyro's Charge Blade. Rathalos shows up again and they have another turf war. Rathalos then knocks Bracky down again as he tries to flee, and I flee to heal and let them continue fighting. After a few more hits, Bracky goes down. I then make Bracky's Charge Blade, and now it's time for Tigrex. I honestly didn't think Tigrex would be very challenging, but I forgot how fast he is. I tried starting off with Bracky's Charge Blade, but it doesn't take long for him to cause me to faint. I return to it with the Nargacuga Charge Blade and Clutch Claw it and fire Slingo ammo, sending it to the wall, which breaks his head. He then enrages and becomes very ravageous, which took me off guard, which leads to me fainting. I then decide to take the L and attempt again, which goes better. I managed to get past the first area. I continue to beat Tigrex down, and then it chases me down, and I can't catch a break to heal, and it causes me to faint. I break his wings, head, and his tail, and he then limps. I try to finish Tigrex off, but fail. So after getting wrecked twice, I decided to mix it up and make Dodogama's Charge Blade, which goes a whole lot smoother. It also helps that I got adjusted to Tigrex. I also used Demon Drug and Armor Skin, which increases attack and defense, which helped a lot. The fight is pretty standard, and Odogaron and Tigrex have a turf war, so that helps. After breaking all of Tigrex's parts, it eventually dies. I then make Tigrex's helmet. I then fight Velkhana in the Elder's Recess, and the fight turned out to be very irritating and frustrating, especially since I didn't know that its breath attack is unblockable. So yeah, of course the first attempt ends up being a flop, with it essentially fighting kind of similar to Malzeno, but not as aggressive, and it's always keeping its range, so it's harder to hit it with the Charge Blade, since you have to be right up in its face, but it does not allow you to really have very safe or good openings. The second time goes a lot better. I'm picking up on its moves patterns a lot more, able to predict it. I get in a lot more Clutch Claw and slamming it into the wall, getting a bit more another mount in, but I still end up losing the Dodogama Charge Blade, but eventually I am able to repel it. I then fight Shrieking Legiana next, who is also pretty annoying to fight, with it being in the air a lot, causing a lot of ice blights, and even normal Legiana would make an appearance and be extremely annoying. But overall, the fight was pretty easy, no loss. I then take on Fulgur and Janath, thinking that this also shouldn't be difficult, and boy was I wrong. Even with traps, Fulgur proved to be very annoying to fight. The fight starts pretty standard, with me clutch clawing it and launching it into a wall. Then it's just beating it up and then in area 7 is where things go down south, because he enrages in this very small area. Now when Fulgur gets enraged, he launches mucus covered in lightning, and little did I know that he had a combo with it, which is cool, but also very frustrating. He has a short range, sending me kind of far. I try to avoid the second, but barely get hit, and then also stunned, allowing him to come up and finish me. Yay. I then return to beating it up with Nargacuga's Charge Blade, to then faint again. And then I try again with my third Charge Blade, but not much longer, I faint once again. I then make Tigrex's Charge Blade. I try to beat Fulgur again, but fail, causing me to fail the run. So I tried again, and this time I'm able to beat Fulgur without fainting. Next I take on Ebony Odogaron, and I was pretty nervous about fighting this thing, but unlike Fulgur, Ebony was actually not hard. Ebony has a pretty predictable move pattern, also just being better with the Charge Blade helped a lot. Ebony ends up having 3 turf wars, 2 with Nargacuga and 1 with Legiana. After dealing a lot of damage to it, I then slay it. Acidic Glavenus also made me pretty nervous, especially since I barely could beat regular Glavenus, but to my surprise, Acidic was also not hard. He just caused me to faint, but thankfully I had insurance nullifying the feint. Using traps and getting a lot of Clutch Claw damage helped a lot. Just like how Ebony falls, Acidic joins it. Velkhana then visits Celiana, and it's not a friendly visit. Luckily I arrive in time to take the Huntsman's place and fight Velkhana. This is definitely the easier version of Velkhana. Despite that though, I do end up fainting and lose Brachydios' Charge Blade. It helps that the game has a few NPCs to distract it. After doing enough damage to it, I make my way to the Dragon Razor and fire it at Velkhana, causing it to flee. I then make Acidic Glavenus's helmet and Brachydios' legs. It was then time to hunt Velkhana, and oh my gosh, this is definitely the hardest monster so far. I tried to clutch claw it and slam it into the wall but fail. I managed to get some damage in and wound its wing. I then tried to sheath to heal up to then be struck down by an ice beam. So I made my way back with Tigrex's charge blade to then die to its ice beam again, which has a ridiculous range. I then fail the quest because my other weapons are high rank. At least I get Brachydios' charge blade back. I then keep trying again and again, but end up failing for about 3 times. Seeing that my initial strategy wasn't working, I decided to change armor set to give me more critical damage. I also make Raytheon's charge blade since it has higher raw damage and poison. With the armor, I make Fulgur Anjanath's helmet for weakness exploit, Hornator's waist for weakness exploit as well, and Acidic Glavenus' arms to help deal with stun. I also changed to Nargacuga's chest for evade window and extender. My strategy this time is to start off with Raytheon's charge blade to do as much damage as possible, which does pretty well until I misposition my clutch claw attack, causing me to get hit by its ice beam, and then I faint from its ice wall. I managed to get some more damage before fainting with Brachydios' charge blade. I then get it to its final area to then faint and fail once again. Honestly, I started to lose hope in beating this monster. However, I thought of one last thing I could do to beat it. Temporal Mantle. This one mantle turned the tide of this fight. If you don't know what it does, it simply makes you dodge attacks automatically. Paired with the Vitality Mantle, I was able to consistently be up in its face and deal massive damage. I also kept my distance when the mantles were on cooldown. Despite the run going smooth, I accidentally rolled into its ice beam, causing me to faint. I managed to make it limp with Brachydios' charge blade. I continue to keep the pressure up, but it then traps me around its ice wall, breaking my Vitality Mantle and eventually causing me to faint. The final moment came. I went back with Nargacuga's charge blade, wondering if it's even possible. Can I really beat Velkhana? Or will I just fail again? I wake Velkhana up and put on the Temporal Mantle, continuing to deal damage to it and wondering why it won't just die already. I run out of my mantle and start running around while trying to damage it when it seems safe. Eventually, my trump card was ready. I put on the Vitality Mantle and started beating the living crap out of Velkhana. I then performed the Savage Axe move, allowing me to kill Velkhana. I then make the Black Eagle charge blade and fully upgrade the Nargacuga charge blade. After some more grinding, I make Velkhana's charge blade and fully upgrade Tigrex's charge blade. I then head to the Elder's Recess to continue investigating the Elder Dragon's phenomenon. Seething Bazelgeuse then shows up and is our next target, which honestly, I don't have much to say about it. It was pretty much a stronger Bazelgeuse, and yeah, he does cause me to faint while I was using the Velkhana's charge blade, but it's not really that big of a loss as the next monsters are not really weak to ice. Either way, I end up slaying Seething Bazelgeuse. I upgrade my Diablo's charge blade to the Acidic Glavenus charge blade. I also upgrade my Rathlow's charge blade. Next, I take on Black Veil Val-Hazak. Black Veil has a major weakness to fire, hence why I'm using Rathalos' charge blade. Black Veil is not much different from regular Val-Hazak. There were times I had to gather resources to make potions. Also, breaking its parts does make the fight easier and lessens his soul-sucking powers. I eventually get to its sleeping area and kill it there. I then upgrade my Rathalos charge blade again. Namiel is up next, and oh my gosh, this thing was a nightmare to fight. My first attempt, I had insurance, which nullifies a feint, so I used my Rathalos Charge Blade again because Namiel is also weak to fire. Namiel is similar to Velkhana, but not as annoying. Namiel likes to surround the ground around it with water, which can slow your movement, but primarily allows it to hit you with a discharge attack if you're in the water. It also does a zigzag water jet attack, and yeah, those two combined cause me to feint once, activating the insurance. I make my way back to Namiel and smack it into a wall, allowing me to do some more good damage. The Paralysis Frog gets activated and paralyzes us both. The Temporal Mantle also helps a lot. I managed to Clutch Claw it and send it to another wall. While damaging it, I managed to break its forelegs. Another problem I faced was time. I managed to get it to the resting area, but it's a small area, so dodging can get a little tricky. I continue to deal as much damage as I can. I managed to shoot it towards the wall, dealing over 700 damage, and it's still not dead. Ugh. While attacking its head, it hits me with its water breath. I tried to get enough distance to heal, but I was still in the hit zone for a second water breath attack, causing me to faint. I make my way back with Nargacuga's Charge Blade and once again slam it to the wall. Surely it'll die. Bruh, you're still alive. The 5 minutes left notification then shows up, so now I'm getting even more stressed. As the fight continues, it spits water at me, and once again I go to Sheath to heal and faint to the fetching water breath. I returned from the quest because there was no point to try and get back to it, because as it sleeps it heals and there just wasn't enough time. I tried again with my second set of weapons, and yeah, that was a flop as well. And so I attempted again. Most of the fight goes the same. Namiel causes me to faint and I lose Rathalos' Charge Blade. Luckily though, I eat again and get insurance, so when Namiel causes me to faint, I don't lose the weapon. And so I make my way back up to Namiel using my bombs to wake it up and do more damage. I then continue to wail more damage on it, doing my best to kill it. I then faint to it jumping at me with its electrified body. When I come back, I use the glider mantle so I can be able to quickly get to it, and then after a few shots with the clutch claw, it eventually runs off the edge and comes to its demise. So remember how I said losing Velkhana's Charge Blade wasn't a big loss? Well, apparently it was, because Shara Ishvalda is weakest to ice. Luckily there was another ice Charge Blade I could make, so I made it. However, before I can fight Shara, I must defeat Ruiner Nergigante. Just like its base form, Ruiner is weak to thunder, so I'm using the Black Eagle Charge Blade. Ruiner was another hard monster since he could inflict bleeding damage. His Thorn Burst attack also had a huge hitbox, making it hard to dodge or distance myself from it. During the fight, I mistimed an invincible dodge, and when I got back up, Nergy caused me to faint. I tried with my Tigrex and Aesthetic Charge Blades, but failed. So I try again, and it goes a bit smoother. My strategy this time was, while I had the mantles on, I would focus on his head, and when I didn't have them on, I would focus around his tail, as his backside is pretty safe. This method helped especially towards the end of the fight when he turns around as I'm in axe mode, allowing me to do big hits on his head and killing him. Finally, it was time to fight Shara Ishvalda. Shara starts in this rock form and is pretty simple. It is a pretty simple fight. I use Nargacuga's Charge Blade for raw damage, and because Purple Sharpness helps a lot in this phase, I managed to smack it into arena traps that drop giant rocks onto it, doing over 2,000 damage. While damaging it, Shara does a body slam attack and causes me to faint. I then break its parts and enter phase 2. While trying to sheath my weapon to dodge its attack, I get hit by a wind beam, causing me to faint again. I grab my ice Charge Blade and do my best to attack behind it, as that seems to be the safest spot. I accidentally open up the stupid camera and struggle to close it, causing me to get hit and faint. So I attempt again. I also bring materials to make more mag potions. My second attempt goes a lot smoother. As I don't faint in his first phase, I focused on his back legs, as that is the safest area to attack. I get caught in his zigzag wind beam attacks and faint. bring up my ice charge blade, and do enough damage to enter phase 3. Phase 3 isn't much of a problem as I continue with my strategy of attacking his back legs and tail. He's a lot easier to smack into the walls as well since he will walk towards you more. His giant spirit bomb attack is also easy to avoid as I just hug the wall and run towards him since he likes to fire a laser beam afterwards. The fight continues until he finally dies. This was definitely a hard challenge. Despite the challenge, I learned that the charge blade can be quite an amazing weapon honestly, and is pretty simple to learn. If you enjoy Monster Hunter Nuzlocke, then check out my hardcore Nuzlocke in World.